Hi, Ian.
Okay.
Can you hear?
Ian, I wanted to ask you, what's the weather like on your side?
Well, here in Paris, the weather changes all the time.
Is it? Are they heading into autumn now?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Actually, we are getting to winter because, the weather now, it has been rather unpredictable. We fell to 10 degrees on September. And coming from Rome, where we enjoyed temperatures as high as 35 and 38, for me was rather a shock. But yeah, but so far everything is just good. It is beautiful Paris during autumn, really, very beautiful.
Lovely, lovely. This side, on the west coast of Cape Town area, Western Cape, the weather is also a little unpredictable. It can be cloudy, overcast, but very warm. We're definitely going to have a very hot summer. We also get into about the early 30s, but winters of late have been pretty cold. So yeah, West Coast winters are not fun. But then again, us Cape Townians, we complain about, for us, 10 degrees is bitterly cold. So we know nothing about the cold.
Oh, well.
In comparison
But
to our friends in the north.
But now that actually you made me, you reminded me that I didn't know that you in South Africa have penguins.
Oh, really?
Oh, well, I don't know, I'm asking. You are the expert.
Oh, no, gosh, no, far from that. But yes, we've got quite a few penguin colonies. One famous one that's in sort of a haven that's in Simonstown, which is also quite a tourist destination as well. So conservation
I can
here
imagine.
is pretty, yeah, conservation is pretty strict over here. But our penguin colony is fantastic. Why did you ask that? That's interesting.
Because you associate that with cold, very cold.
For interrupting. Hi, guys. Sorry for interrupting. I believe we should start now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no penguins anymore.
We'll talk about the penguins after this. But I believe that we should start and then, more people will join us as time goes on. But thank you so much for honoring the invite. Thank you to all the participants. And I just wanted to acknowledge Natasha Van Ruyen. She's, a standards and compliance specialist in the space and defense sector, as well as Ian Elisali Kigundu, legal specialist in space law and ECG compliance. I'm really sorry if I didn't pronounce your surname. I've been trying to practice.
Don't worry.
It's today. And I believe that some of the people that I'm going to mention now are not yet in the room with us, but I'll just proceed to acknowledge and to welcome the University of Eswatini and the Royal Science and Technology Park, which was founded in 2012 through the vision of His Majesty King Mswati III. Which was there to champion innovation, such as the recent Stardust proposal to establish a space agency in partnership with the Kingdom of Eswatini. And I also wanted to acknowledge Dr. Nkambule and Dr. Simpiwe Ntentesa, as well as Mr. Senzo Mkumbezulu, as well as the students that will be joining us. They may not be here now, but they will join us as time goes on. So I believe, as we start and as we wait for more people to join, I'll just share a little bit on LUNA. So may you please show the slides for LUNA? Just give us a moment. Okay, so the reason why we're here today is because of LUNA and as well as our highly esteemed speakers, as I'd mentioned before. LUNA stands for Luapi Unified Nexus AfriSpace Agency. Luapi is a Bantu word that means sky. Unified, unity, linking people together. Nexus is also a connecting point. AfriSpace is the combination of Africa and space, joining the two together. And that's what the whole name LUNA, that's what it means. Our core values include dignity, transparency, communication, integrity, respect, and as well as Ubuntu, togetherness, family, unity. What LUNA wants to focus on, or what we're focusing on, is to provide access to internships, space programs for experts, academia, government researchers, students, and knowledge through innovative ideas. We're hoping that these webinars would educate and inform the public, and as well as legal experts or experts in general about space, because that's where Africa is lagging behind. LUNA is not about just having one country pursuing the space race only. We want Africa to be connected, hence why the members of LUNA are from various parts of Africa. And one of our key areas are astronautics, education, outreach, science, or journalism, internships, and as well as research, because research is the reason why space is there. There's so much that happens behind the scenes. And then our vision statement includes putting Africans at the forefront of the space race in the world and in Africa. We understand that, we are behind in terms of technology, infrastructure, but we're hoping that through these webinars, it would educate and also inspire the youth and the next generation to pursue space programs or STEM. So LUNA doesn't just focus on engineering, which is usually what people are taught. We usually believe that in order to be in space, you have to be an engineer. That's not always the case. You don't always have to be aeronautical engineer or aerospace engineer to work in space. You can be in medicine, you can do AI, you can do humanities, you can also be a teacher, and also go to space. And then our mission statement includes positioning Africa in the global space race by equipping people with the necessary skills and knowledge about space. And we'll go to the next slide. So our team consists of amazing individuals from various countries. On this slide, we have individuals from Botswana and Zimbabwe. There's Natasha Molele, you can see her on the slide. And we have Tumo Kidumele, who's the co-founder. And we have Kundai Moyo, who is the executive director. If any of you from the slides are here, please just turn on your mic and say hello. Kundai. Just say hi. Just say hi.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. That's
Hi.
Kundai. Okay. And then on the next slide, we have Rachel Gaze, who is from Burundi. She is part of the Human Resources Department. We have Francis Adedeji, who is also part of the Public Relations Department, as well as Zwelelo Mfundisi, who is also part of the Public Relations Department from Botswana. She's from Botswana and Francis is from Nigeria. If any of them are here with us, please just unmute and say hello. from that slide.
Hello, yeah, this is Francis here. It's good to
Okay.
have you all on board. Yeah, hello. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. And then on our last slide, we have Christine Fulgens, who's part of the Public Relations Department. We have Dr. Yona Laser, who's part of the Operations Department, as well as Donald Tembo, who's in the Finance Department. If they're here, please just greet the audience.
Hello, this is Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hello,
Hi.
Hello, hello, hello.
hello everybody.
Hello.
This is glad to be here.
Amazing. Thank you so much for honoring the invite. And me, I'm from
Hi,
hi,
Rachel.
hi Rachel. And me, I'm from Botswana. I was in the first slide. So hello everyone, this is Natasha Mulele. And then one of our goals include the Sustainable Development Goals, which include quality education, gender equality, industry innovation and infrastructure, as well as sustainable cities and communities. We understand that the goals of creating, human settlements in space. So sustainable cities is not just about that here on Earth. There's so many NASA challenges, there's so many scientific challenges that are coming up, which I'm hoping to involve the community on. We can go to the next slide. And to stay in touch with us or to get in touch with us, you can visit our website, LUNA AfriSpace.org, or you can find us on LinkedIn. Just type LUNA AfriSpace. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. We also share other platforms in the captions. So yeah, unless you have any questions about Luna, feel free to ask before Christine takes the floor. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, Christine, since there are no questions, the floor is all yours.
Hi, everyone. We're still welcoming the ones who are still joining. I'm going to have a brief introduction for the speakers. So we'll start with Ian. So, sorry. Ian is a legal specialist focused on space law, ESG compliance, and international business law. He's an author on the legal framework of orbital space stations and the privatization of space law. His research explores the intersection between sustainability, commercialization, and governance of space activities. He has collaborated with the European Space Agency and Linklaters in ESG-related projects. He is currently based in Paris, where he contributes to discuss on legal frameworks for responsible innovation and sustainable space development. And now we have Natasha with over 25 years of cross-sector experience. She drives innovation in space and technology. She leads the African Space Identity Series, develops the Space Industry Dynamics Index, and contributes to ASLI and the AIAA Space Sustainability Task Force, championing equitable and sustainable access to space. Now, dear viewers, I could now just welcome the boss speakers. We'll start with the ladies first. Natasha, could you just briefly, I insist, introduce yourself and greet the audience? Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you. It's very kind of you. Lovely introductions. Great to hear about your focus areas and your missions and that as well. I'm in full support about that. It's very inspiring to see your efforts behind the scenes with regards to advancing what I believe is the constructive narrative around our access or fair access to space as a continent. And then, of course, the sovereignty issues. With regards to also, again, for the opportunity to be here to also share some of my insights and experiences, and to be alongside some fabulous people as well, including Ian. So it's been a pleasure to be able to chat to him and that a few times now. So I'm very appreciative. I have got quite a few years in quite a few industries, so I will not bore you with too much of the detail. Suffice it to say that my recent couple of years have been natural progression into the space industry, especially with regards to the interdisciplinary nature, what I call transdisciplinary nature of it, where there's a lot of intersections and a lot of complex problems that come up that we don't know about as yet, or that we haven't quite got the handle of yet, especially regards capacity and capability development. So those are sort of my main focus areas, is to really build capacity and capability and address those issues on a continental as well as a national basis. I lecture for the African Space Leadership Institute around the original concept from about 2 years ago with the African Space Identity series. I have always stood for open access to knowledge, and I have put a lot of effort into trying to have practical solutions accessible to as many people, as many different industries as possible, because of the interdisciplinary nature. Yes, in terms of the index, I'm working on a continental index to help us measure where the investable areas are, as well as the technology transfer areas. So that I'm very keen to finalize, hopefully by the start of the new year. So holding thumbs on that part. And again, it's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Wow, that was really brief. Thank you, Natasha. Ian, over to you.
Yes, I think that you can hear me. Yes, absolutely. First of all, I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for the invitation. And you basically said most of what I do. But the one thing that I would like also to add is that I collaborate with many jurists and with many engineers and policymakers around the world. I am very inspired and very, it gives me a new elements to think also in legal terms, because I think that there is a lack of it, because generally this is the matter of space is something that is relegated to political scientists, which is good. I also many friends in the field, and I hope that they are not actually feeling some sort of criticized, but at all. But I think that also a contribution of not just jurists, lawyers that are just focused on the Western legal traditions, but also, they open and try to, let's say, compare and maybe come up with solutions that usually policymakers cannot really come up. First of all, because they don't really have a good idea of the law behind it, and second, because usually these are, there are politicians, and of course they respond to the interest from the people who vote for them. So my work basically is based on reflecting on these elements and reflecting also on what business may need, but I'm not also one of those enthusiasts of having private actors just unleashing uncontrollably with no laws, on earth and on heaven, let's say. So yes, and this is something that it is reflected in what I have done in my interests and my involvement in the European Space Agency, and also in the Global Law Firm and Linklaters, where also has given me a good perspective on how global law firm works and what are the expectations of companies, especially in ESG related matters. Yeah, that's it for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. And now handle it over to Kundai for the icebreaker.
Hi everyone. I hope you can see my screen.
Hi, Kundai.
Hello,
I can die.
Kundai.
We
Hi,
hear you.
Kundai.
Yes.
Right guys, so if we can all just go on menti.com, if you can see my screen above, then that's the code to join.
Kundai, may you please repeat? Okay.
Because you guys see my screen? I hope it's visible now. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
your screen.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. All right, so we're just going to use this little website to just do a little icebreaker. We've got a few questions just to get everyone to loosen up a little bit and just to get to know a little bit more about everyone. So if we can all just go on Menti, if you've got devices, if you just join, I think if you just type it on Google, it should pop up. And then that's the code to join at the top. And you're free to put any name that you want.
Sorry, I did not understand.
Can you share the link on the chat?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello? Kundai? Okay.
Yep.
Menti.com.
Yeah. Let me just double check it's actually working. Okay. Yeah, we've got a few players now.
All right, that's great.
Yeah, I'll just give more time for everyone to join. While everyone is joining, can we all just put where we're joining in from, what country, in the chat, please, just so we know?
I'm seeing Tanzania, I'm seeing Zambia, Italy. Nice.
Very diversified. I like it.
Oh, nice. I'm seeing people responding. Let's see. We have France. We have Algeria. We have Botswana, South Africa, Burundi, Tanzania, Eswatini. Oh, amazing. Okay.
Right, just a couple more seconds to let everyone join in. And then we can get started.
Okay. Let's see, more people from Tanzania. Nice.
So yeah, I think we're just gonna start in a moment. But just before we start, I'll just explain how Menti works in case you haven't used it before. So there's going to be a series of questions coming up when I start the quiz, and you basically have to answer it as quick as you can and choose the correct answer. There will be 4 options to choose from, and the quickest person to answer, they basically get the most points. So if you're competitive, you might like this game.
Oh my word. This is going to be fun.
Right, so I think I might as well just start it now. So just be ready on your devices because it goes very, very quick. All right, I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I've seen the questions. Okay. Oh.
Brilliant.
Amazing. A few people think it was NASA.
Okay.
Okay, let's see who answered the quickest.
Nice.
All right, Excel. Very quick there. Right, we're gonna go to the next question.
Excel is excelling.
Right, next question coming up.
Next question. Let's see.
No pressure.
Official.
Who knows the dates?
Interesting question.
I love this.
Let's see. Yes.
You're really
Please let me
testing
the last.
age here.
Let's see if Excel is excelling again. Oh.
Well done, everyone.
Who's Luna?
Is Excel reading the questions?
I'm going for a losing streak here.
Grace Franca is the fastest. Yes. I love it.
Wow, Grace.
Well done.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, we're just gonna do the last question for now and then we'll come back.
Okay. More questions. Let's see.
So, yes, ready. 3rd question.
Mm-hmm. What are the official dates?
Oh my gosh.
What? Exam.
Oh my, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Let's
Yes.
A lot of people got it right, so that's good.
Yeah, a lot of people got it right. Okay.
Yes, I got one correct. Oh my God.
Amazing.
I'm so proud of myself.
Well
tell
done.
me.
Well done.
Oh,
Well done, everyone. That was amazing.
yes.
That's amazing.
Well done, Grace. You're leading.
Who is
Yeah,
Grace?
that's me. That's me.
Are you sure you were
Wow,
reading the
Francis.
question?
You were
At
studying,
point,
guys.
at this point, I should be fired from the panel.
Okay. Yeah, I love this icebreaker. Yeah, this
Right,
was
well done, everyone.
well
I
done.
doubt.
Well
Francis,
done.
were you not Googling? Francis had Google or ChatGPT.
None of the above.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for
Well done.
participating in that icebreaker. Now let's get to the real deal right now. Congratulations to the winner, okay? So we are officially starting our first segment, and our questions will go to both speakers. So I believe ladies first for now. The first question is, from your individual field, law and standards, how do you interpret the phrase Africa's rising influence in the context of global space governance?
Hmm. Can I grab this one?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I have to say that the topic is really a challenge. You really challenged my thinking this week. Yin and I chatted briefly about it last week and that as well. It's quite a complex subject in terms of unpacking, because on one side you have a lot of the theories and discussions and conversations currently going on, not just continentally, but globally as well. And then you also have the practical realities, the challenges on the ground with regards to this, and who understands what and at what intersection. So on the whole, I think standards, we had a look, sorry, I actually did a slide on that. I don't know if you have that one at all, Natasha. The one, I think it was a slide number 2. If you're able to, when you have a moment, I'll talk around it. But on the whole, standards and law work in tandem. Where law itself would provide the framework for what must be done and why. And then standards and compliance practices will naturally provide the technical specifications on how to do it responsibly and effectively. So now, I guess when we have this conversation today about Africa's rising influence in global space governance, we could realize that it represents a sort of fundamental shift from passive participation to an active co-creation of the frameworks, that will define our shared, dare I say, a cosmic future. It's just pretty philosophical to say. But from a standards and compliance perspective, I think this influence that I'm talking about manifests in sort of 3 critical dimensions that I had a look at. And sorry, that would have been helpful with the slide. I don't know if you can, but I'll list them off here.
Francis, may you please show the slide?
You'll see a slide there which I've listed critical dimensions. And that just sort of supports, gives us a visual as to the intersections on how this lays out. There we go. Thanks so much. And then just pop through to the second slide. There we go. Okay, you can all see it. Thank you so much. That's really nice of you. Okay, now the 3 areas that I identified as these critical dimensions. was indigenous capacity building, the normative contribution, and the convergence of defense and civilian capabilities. So now I'll obviously have to unpack this for you, what I mean by this, what do I mean by it? So essentially, you know, through my work in implementing quality management systems, I've witnessed firsthand how African companies, that they're not merely just adopting international standards, we're actually contextualizing them. We're developing quality frameworks that actually meet some global benchmarks, of course, but also while addressing unique operational realities. So we have that benefit of late, where other countries have not necessarily had that. But now this is from our supply chain right through to regulatory environments. This arguably is actually sovereignty in action. And hopefully I'll be able to explain this a bit more on this later. But for example, you know, currently South Africa has no technical standards committee for the space industry under the South African Bureau of Standards. Technical standards committees are actually responsible for creating mandates around international benchmarks and practices, and also bringing them into a local context, in this case, South African. So for space manufacturers, this actually means setting their own ways of working, borrowing some aspects of international practices, but with no further obligation tying them to national priorities other than regulation practices. Now, this is a little problematic. It's great for entrepreneurship, but and you know, in benchmarking unique goods and practices. But it's actually problematic for when we have to model these behaviors to create a wider capacity and capability for the field of expertise, especially our national priorities, and if we also need to address risk and liabilities. Now, please, as I go along, you know, there's a lot of technical jargon that can sort of, you know, I can introduce in that as well. So if there's any confusion on it, please stop and feel free to ask me about it. The second dimension that I sort of addressed at was the normative contribution. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, this rising influence, this term that we unpacking now, and so it would sort of imply that we're moving collectively, I guess, beyond standards compliance to a standards development. Now, I'm an affiliate of the American Institute for Aeronautics and Astronautics, their Space Sustainability Task Force. I'm only one of two people in Africa on that, which for me is problematic in terms of access and the passing on the knowledge. But I see increasingly there's conversations going on in that zone about shaping, you know, around African perspectives, around sustainable space operations, around circular space economies, or principles under that, and also what we call responsible use frameworks. You know, our experience with resource optimization in this continent and our community-centered development that we work with, and of course environmental stewardship, really does actually position us to contribute some pretty essential viewpoints to this global space governance framework. Also, more recently in that, I'm the only person from Africa on the Committee for Standards for Mass Properties for Space Controls. Any item that goes into space that has a mass or inertia and so forth, these are standards that are being developed and reviewed every year. And these are aspects that have implications for the entire space industry, and also for African supply chains and manufacturers. So why we are not represented in terms of decision making on international areas, a challenge that I'm currently working on. Okay, so now the convergence, the third one, the convergence of defense and civilian capabilities. This can be a pretty controversial discussion point, I know, in terms of dual use technologies. I've done some research on Africa's space identity, you know, with the African Space Leadership Institute, and I actually explore how continental security, technology governance as well, and innovation ecosystems can actually intersect. You know, we could say that Africa's influence is rising, because we're approaching space holistically. So not as an isolated defense or commercial or scientific endeavor, but as integrated capabilities that actually serve continental sovereignty. And then sustainable development as well. And of course, we're looking at global cooperation simultaneously. So I find this aspect of it, again, then the interplay between standards and then law and these frameworks as enablers, as a pretty exciting topic. And I said, again, not very easy to unpack because of the areas that it touches. So thank you. I'm sorry, I might have sort of overspoke on this aspect here. So I do Ian wants to pop in on this one too, because he's got huge viewpoints on these aspects, pretty key points too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I liked how you talked about, the critical areas as well as the points about, indigenous capacity building as well, and, the normative contribution. So thank you so much for highlighting and, just clarifying for those who are still, learning more about space governance. So Ian, may you also share your thoughts on the same question, unless you would want me to rephrase the question?
No, I would like to spend a few words on on this question because I think it is interesting. It is very interesting because I mean, to understand global space governance, I think that we must first understand international law, since space law is a branch of it. But first, we need also to understand its reality. I mean, the concept in which we can insert Africa and its rise to, let's say, the highest heavens. So international law is generally defined as the body of rules, principles, and norms that governs relationships between sovereign states and other international actors. But we are living in the midst of a great transition to a multipolar world. To be precise, from a post-American order in a multipolar world. No one can tell actually how this transition will unfold. But there is no doubt that it'll be messy and unpredictable. We have to bear this in mind because America is stepping back as the global insurer, but there is no other country that is willing to fill the vacuum. And so we are in this uncomfortable position where the old rules do not apply anymore, but the new ones have not been written. And it's true that we are all going through this time. We are all in this together. I mean and we have to brace ourselves because for more turbulence ahead. And furthermore, I mean, what happened in America is, I don't really consider it just as a temporary phenomenon, because it reflects a broader change in political culture and in the American society itself. Because there is the broader feeling that America has not benefited from the current global order. And the irony is that it put it in place. I mean, it designed this global order. But in a way, in many parts of its society, people do not believe that it's benefiting right now America. And so there is, I mean, I don't really think that is willing, I mean, the US to do the heavy lifting to keep this order going. And this goes beyond the current administration. And I want to point out that this is not just about America, because you can also see India, for example. I mean, in April, there's been a terrorist attack that involved 26 civilians in Pahalgam, which is in the Kashmir region. And India launched missile strikes towards the city and threatened to suspend the Indo-Water treaties. I mean, effectively threatening to cut off three-quarters of Pakistan water supply. And this goes against, I mean, the Indus Treaty actually, the Indus Water Treaty of the 1960s and Article 2, 3, and 9, where actually in nowhere it is written that allows a unilateral suspension. And also all the international laws around the equitable use of water resources, such as the UN Water Course Convention in 1997 on Article 5 and 7, where there are two guiding principles. I mean, equitable utilization and no significant harm principle, which are the core of the international law related to water management. So what's my point? I mean, in the first 2 decades of the 21st century, I mean, the system of international it has been increasingly challenged. I mean, the predominance that Europe and more broadly the West enjoyed after the 1945 was an exception. And I think that even here in Europe, they're coming to terms with that. And so, I mean, the world of today reflects anarchy. I mean, an anarchy not in the absence of laws. What I'm referring to with anarchy is that there is no high authority above states. But this has been always the reality of states on Earth. States remain, I mean, the key actor in the international system that it is without hierarchy. But you also have to take into consideration that all states more or less have a certain degree of military capability, and no one is really certain of the intention of the other state. So just try to imagine this situation projected above, because this is the condition, this condition of anarchy extends also beyond Earth. I mean, outer space is now filled with a growing number of man-made objects, launched primarily by Western nations, but not only that, I mean, there is also Chinese operator. Actually, Russia comes second. And some of these space man-made objects are managed by private companies. So, and in comparison, African countries currently account for less than 3%, that's probably even too much. Maybe around 1% of the global space expenditure, and between 1 and 3% of the total satellites in orbit. So, in such an environment, states, of course, fear one another. That's one of the reasons why also Natasha said before that there is this concern around security, because for what I said, I mean, no higher authority above states, and most states have military capabilities, and no one really has an idea of the intention of one another. So states fear one another, and they also recognize that the international system, especially now that the trust has been eroded, it is a self-help world fundamentally, in which everyone, every country, every nation states try to maximize its power and influence. So, and while attention often focuses on the US and China, there are other actors such as India, as I mentioned before, and increasingly Africa, that are setting regional and global ambitions. But this must be supported with real and tangible ingenuity. And I would like to make the example of Italy, because Italy prides itself of having launched most of its first satellite, not within Italian territory, but on Kenya territory. I mean, and I'm referring to San Marco 2, Ururu, San Marco 3, and San Marco 4. So if Italy did it in Kenya, in Africa, throughout an agreement, okay, because there is an agreement between Italy and Kenya, between the ASI, which is the Agenzia Spaziale Italiana, the Italian Space Agency, and the Kenyan Space Agency. Sometimes I think that the Kenyans are not very much satisfied of this cooperation, but that's been going on for a long time. And the two parties just keep negotiating. But back to what I was saying before, I mean, if Italy did it in Kenya, in Africa, there is no reason to think that Africans on the continent cannot do the same even better. So, I mean, and within this context, I think that the formation and strengthening of the African Union and the establishment of the African Space Agency, I mean, symbolize Africa's rise both as a regional power and an emerging space actor. But yet, I mean, the world remains uncertain and competitive, and what once arrived by sea may in the future descend from the sky. But if African countries, of course, do nothing, but African leaders, I think, must show the way forward. I mean, collectively, we all must have a vision that we can contribute to the betterment of the world, that we can show the world a different perspective. I mean, I use a lot of time, I mean, you will hear it that, I mean, throughout this conversation, I mean, that I make comparison with Italy, Europe, China, United States, but I think that this is very important. For example, I mean, Italy was a country whose economy between the 50s and the 60s was based on agriculture more than factories. And it developed. So most African countries have today this unique possibility to build and tell the world what a postmodern society looks like with laws, power, multilateral cooperation, and ingenuity. And that's my answer to the question.
Absolutely. I also love how you touched base on how, Africa, you gave the example that Africa only has, about 1%, and we still have these aspirations of dominating the space race or contributing to it. So it's just, how do we provide solutions to that, to close that gap as well, and also seeing how we could lead, because there were launches from Africa, from Kenya, Kenyan. So it just shows that we shouldn't undermine ourselves, our capabilities as well, because you mentioned that.
Absolutely.
Yes, because you mentioned that it was launched from Kenyan ground, and it's only clicking now that, Africa is actually.
Yeah, in 1964,
Yes,
1967. I mean, it was, I mean, the platform is still there. I mean, it is managed jointly by the Italian Space Agency and the Kenyan Space Agency, but the infrastructure is there. It has been there for 60 years, and there can be many more. I mean, there could be a market of spaceports, and actually, sub-Saharan Africa, I mean, is located in the best place on Earth to launch space objects.
Exactly. That human capital, we have human capital. Africa has a lot of human capital. Obviously, the infrastructure is maybe where we're lacking, but there's a lot that we can do, from spaceports to the manufacturing, all of that is possible. And then as we go to the last question of this segment, my question for you is, what key milestones or developments in the past decade do you believe have elevated Africa's visibility in the space sector?
Me?
Okay,
Is this direction for me?
Yes, and Natasha as well.
Should I go first? Who goes first, Natasha?
Up to you, Ian.
Yes.
You want to jump in first, and then I'll follow with my.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's say that I have. I think that there is one milestone and then two potential milestones for me. So, I mean, the first one, of course, is the establishment of the African Space Agency. And I don't want to be redundant in repeating that, but it's indeed an achievement, because it is, I mean, we have to also, I mean, to pat our back, because first of all, I mean, there is no political entity as big as the African Union and the African Space Agency. I mean, covering such a huge landmass with so many peoples. This, of course, is a challenge, but I think that from the legal point of view, I mean, it has been, I mean, I think it is, I mean, it was created in 2018 under Article 5 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union. But it is part of the African Union. I mean, the African Space Agency is part of the African Union. And why do I say that? Because, and probably I will explain that further in our conversation, but in Europe, ESA, the European Space Agency, is not part of the European Union. There is actually an agreement between the European Union and ESA, and actually EU taxpayers, citizens, are paying this international organization because that is the what in legal term is the European Space Agency. And sometimes, and there are actually serious concerns about immunity and accountability. Okay. And then there is also another European agency, which is USPA, which is actually part of the European Union framework. And sometimes they are overlapping. I mean, or at least USPA wanted to have certain field and wanted to have certain areas that usually ESA were working on, and so there is sometimes there is this conflict, which I think that the African Union avoided altogether establishing this agency. Of course, this has its own challenges because yes, from the point of view of the organization, this is makes things clear, and there are no competing agency of the same level. But of course, the African Space Agency has to then cooperate with national space agency, and we don't have to forget that yes, maybe for the rest of the world, African countries can all be the same, but we cannot be, let's say, enamored with the idea of this agency and then neglecting the fact that all African states have their own interest, their national interests. Okay, so yes, they have to converge, but it's also natural that 55 sovereign states can have even opposite interests with one another. This happens in Europe, and I think it's a little easier because also of how the EU is structured, and I will explain later. But in Africa, there is not this mechanism, and I think that this will make the job of the African Space Agency rather hard, because otherwise it will basically become a sort of forum where member states can come and just say whatever they want without actually following up of their decisions. So I think that this is indeed a problem, but it is a milestone. It is indeed a milestone. Now, very quickly, I go with those things that I consider potential milestones. The first is the growing participation of African countries in international space governance initiatives. And I'm referring to Artemis Accord, although I don't really consider that a very good way to engage in international space governance because of the nature of Artemis Accord, but we are going to talk about this later probably. But also to remind that between 2000 and 2023, I mean, Africans signed more than 160 bilateral space agreements involving 100 institutions across 32 countries. So in a nutshell, I would consider a true milestone if just the African Space Agency and many national space agency in Africa, I mean, participate and have a more leading role in setting standards in global space governance within corpus. I think that would be indeed a milestone. And the last, and I will be very, very quick, is the is the news actually that I read in 2023 of the Hong Kong Aerospace Technology Group, a Chinese company, which signed an agreement with the government of Djibouti to build a rocket launch facility in Orbok. I think that of course, it depends on the terms of the agreement, but of course it would be transformative because maybe this would give Djibouti an independent access to space. Of course, this depends on the agreement, the terms of the agreement. And thanks to its strategic position in near the equator, maybe Djibouti could, with appropriate agreement with the African Space Agency, could make the facility available to other African nations. So, and even to private companies. I mean, helping to open, the African launch market and strengthen continental cooperation in space. But this remains a potential milestone. I don't know, and its success will depend on sustained investment, regional coordination, and the political will. To ensure that it serves the broader interests of Africa space future.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ian. And then Natasha, may you please just briefly share with us your thoughts on that, and then we have to go into the next session or segment. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Ian's got some really great insights on that. I was actually enjoying that. Also, I must say, Natasha, I like how you posed that question in terms of the past decade, and that how we believe we've elevated Africa's visibility. Because, a lot of people, when we're talking, having these conversations, I say, okay, what have you achieved? What's your achievement so far, and so forth? And what successes have you done? And those, sort of resonating earlier with what Ian was saying earlier, we're still immature on a global scale with regards to a lot of issues that we need to be addressing first. There's very specific metrics in place for you to be considered a space nation or an advanced space nation. And we have to achieve those aspects as soon as possible, sooner than later. Natasha, you also mentioned something about capability. We have some really great capability sort of networks here in South Africa in terms of skills and so forth. And that is absolutely true. How we've leveraged that in this bigger gameplay is something, again, that we need to have a look at. I think in the past decade, we've really witnessed some transformative milestones. Absolutely, not achievements, but milestones around Africa's emergence. So I love that word that you've used there. With us being on our journey towards being a spacefaring continent, we can't really do this nationally yet. Unless we get this coordination thing right. So the African Space Agency, absolutely, I think as it stands, was probably the most significant institutional development that we've managed to get into place, which is a great start. So these 55 member states and their mandate to ultimately coordinate the continental space ambition, so that we've got to be focusing on that mandate and how that mandate is going to translate into it. So it's noteworthy also, I must mention that this is again what Ian was speaking about earlier, it is the only second regional space agency globally next to the ESA. So that is a significant contribution to the space conversation. And it says a lot about Africa's, collective commitment to this collective action. And even great what Ian said as well, even the possibility of a shared infrastructure, which is key for us to get that jump that we need to get in terms of our reaching the achievements, celebrating the achievements sooner than later. Sorry, I wanted to talk more about South Africa's contributions to this, but that is something that's easily Googleable. So we can chat on the next one. Thank you for that. Thanks, Ian, as well. Some great insights there.
Amazing. Thank you to our speakers for the lovely insight. And I do agree, the African Space Agency is absolutely revolutionary. And it's something that is definitely, giving hope to a lot of Africans. And I believe it's obviously a way that Africans can work together and, maybe have a stand-in with the European space agencies, for example, and just be a part of the bigger giants in the industry. So we're just gonna take this time to have like a group picture. So I would just like to ask our audience to just turn our cameras on if you're able to. So if we can all just turn our cameras on, and then we're gonna do a nice big group photo. So big smiles, everyone.
All right. Big smiles, everybody.
Sorry, maybe you can stop sharing the screen before taking. I don't know.
Yes, why not? Feel free to do that.
Cheese,
Amazing.
fromage.
Cameras on, everybody.
Yeah, I think a few more people are still turning them on.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yes, we can.
All right, a couple more.
A couple more?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, they're coming in.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
We
All
can
right.
start ready now.
Thank you.
All right, big smiles, everyone. 3, 2, 1. Go for another one. Big smiles. 3, 2, 1. Amazing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Beautiful
Yes.
smiles, by the way.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Right, I would just like to hand over to our moderator, Pristine. You can take over for the next session.
Thanks, Kundan.
No
Thank you.
worries.
We are going to go to the second segment, and it's about legal policy and compliance perspectives. So space activities require strong ethical and legal foundation. My question to both of you is, what are the critical legal or compliance frameworks Africa must develop or adapt to ensure responsible space use and sustainability? We can start with Ian.
Oh, okay. I think that Natasha has way more to say than me in this. I will try. I will try to say something about it. First, I would say that from a legal point of view, Africa must give, real effect to, African countries. Not all of them, of course, have enacted national laws. And so they have to follow the Article 6 or the Outer Space Treaty, which basically is the article that all member states that have signed the treaty are required to put into national law, or at least to adjust their space endeavors based on the provision of the treaties. So they have to translate into national policies and legislation and become more active and involved in corpus, where the rules of space are actually being shaped. And let me share something that actually struck me, because in the last, this week, I attended the Summit on Sustainability organized by the Secure World Foundation. So I had the opportunity to talk with many business leaders, to listen to the head of UNOSA, who told actually an anecdote that made people laugh, because but it carried a serious message, of course, because, she was dead serious. Others, of course, we all laughed, but yeah. I mean, the representative of some African countries and Pacific islands, I mean, approached the chief of UNOSA and said, I mean, we want access to space, we want Starlink. This, I mean, I quote, end quote. I mean, this exactly what this leader, she did not mention who are these, what country were these leaders representing. But the room laughed, not to ridicule those countries, but because also her response revealed two important lessons. Because Mrs. Arti Maini, the head of the chief of UNOSA, I mean, first said that, I mean, access to space begins with engagement. I mean, with being present in corpus where decisions are made by consensus. I mean, that is not by vote. And this is important because this means that even the smallest countries have a voice. And that consensus process helps limit the dominance of the major space powers. And connecting to what I was saying before at the very first question, the first segment, as you can see, there is the tendency to undermine multilateralism to advance national interests. But we still have these institutions, and they are key, and the majority of nations in the world participate in it. So I think that those African countries, are even those African leaders, or the ones coming from the Pacific Island states, I mean, should, I mean, if they really want to do good for their own peoples, the people that elected them, I mean, they should, instead of asking for Starlink, they should be thinking very much about an increasing participation of their own countries in the international forums such as COPUS. The second, and I think it is crucial, and I wrote extensively about it in many papers in my book, and I've been talking a lot about it, is that access to space does not mean surrendering sovereignty to private actors. I mean, our leaders must act responsibly. I mean, under international law, I mean, states are responsible for the activity of their private operators. I don't get too much into the technicalities of it and all the jurisprudence also done by the International Court of Justice, and the many people that are jurists and lawyers that work on the core principles of that. But states are responsible for the activity of private operators. So when a government allows foreign private companies to control its space infrastructure or data systems, it is in effect allowing those private actors to exercise power greater than the state itself. Because now that is, I think, the problem, not only in space, but what shall we do when private entities have a technology that far outgrow the one of a sovereign state? I mean, I think that it is something to think about. So in my view, it's something really that deserve, I mean, serious criticism. I mean, what these representatives have done, especially to one person that actually may represent with her position in caucus, since she's the head of UNOS, I mean, the solution of part of their problems. Then I think that it's worth remembering that UNOS, of course, I mean, does not impose national space laws, but it does offer, I mean, technical guidance and support to states developing them. So, I mean, there is the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 68/74, I mean, that outlines recommendations that can guide national legislation based on the principle of the Outer Space Treaty. And these include provision on licensing, supervision, liability, insurance, the registration of space objects. I mean, all key elements for ensuring a responsible sovereign participation in outer space. So yes, I think that these are the things that by mind, but I think that Natasha can surely complement what I have said with with a better understanding also related to the standards and the compliance to on this matter.
Thank you so much, Ian. I was listening to you and I'm like, well, Tanzania, where are you? Anyway.
Well, she did not say Tanzania anyway.
Yeah.
We don't know. We can go and look after our leaders, which is our job anyway. It is our job.
Natasha, I think you have, Ian has said you have more to say. Let's hear from you.
Yes, I'm itching here because these are the aspects that excite me. It's again, it's how these larger conversations that are happening. My concern is always, my mission is always to take it one step further and practically in current reality, how are these concepts applying? How are these things working out operationally? How do we get this to actually turn into tangible results? So that is always my focus area, and it gets me pretty excited because these are aspects that I'm already working on. These are aspects, again, a lot more conversations happening on the ground rather than, you know, in theory on top levels. I believe the top levels are absolutely laying down the purpose and bringing out the inspiration that we need to have happen. But again, realistically, there's some very tangible stuff that we have to be looking at. Christine, I hope you don't mind you just click into the next slide for me, because there were very specific drawdowns that I've pulled in from this great question. A pretty difficult question again to answer, but it's a big ask. You know, we really need sort of layered, is what I'm representing here, layered compliance frameworks, because they need to be able to cover our immediate operational needs on the ground, but also without, I mean, while building sort of this long-term governance capacity as well. It's no easy ask. Because again, we also lack the capability in a lot of these specific areas here, which is interesting. But basically, you know, look, I understand that the licensing systems must fulfill international treaty obligations, and they must also enable commercial activity. But South Africa, for instance, you know, we've got the Space Affairs Act, and licensing procedures gives one approach. But a lot of the countries in Africa lack their own comprehensive frameworks on these issues here. So we need efficient and transparent licensing that evaluates important data points like our technical, our financial, our safety, and our environmental criteria that needs to be put into place here. But without creating these prohibitive barriers for startups and SMEs. So there's quite a few challenges on there. Forgive me, I just want to see. So those are the areas that sort of I've identified that are necessary, these compliance frameworks. Forgive me, I must allude you that there is a range of standard certification. For instance, the Aerospace 9100, I don't know if people are, again, I'm very wary of going in technically to these, but these are essential for African companies who want to start participating fully in global space supply chains. But I want people to understand that it's not just about meeting customer requirements. International contracts would build these types of requirements into their contracts and actually state to suppliers, potential current suppliers in Africa, these are the requirements that you need to have in place. So it's not just about meeting that contractual obligation, but it's also to ensure the product safety, their reliability, traceability through the product life cycle that speaks to sustainability issues, but also about building that capability, that repeatable model that we can use on the ground. So it's important that companies are not looking at these contractual obligations just as standalones, but how could this translate into a very exciting opportunity for them to now replicate and build that capability that we need. I like to work on projects that show companies, you know, how they can create these competitive advantages, you know, by reducing these regional centric requirements and enabling qualifications for international contracts. So, I mean, it is really at the end of the day, a lot of these for these companies, and it's about their own sustainability, business continuity, and of course, increasing the bottom line. So again, the continent, on a continent level, we need more certification bodies, we need standards generation bodies, we need training programs, and even consultant capacity to support these companies through these certification processes. I'm finding it challenging because of our lack of technical to committee capability here locally for me to make these types of changes in South Africa from a space industry perspective, because we have zero consultancy capability in the area that I work in. You'd think that would be great, but it's a challenge for me to make this impact locally and now repeat that kind of scenario across the continent. And then we've got a compounded problem that has to be addressed on a technical level sooner than later when we're talking about capability. So for instance, there now, when we speak about space sustainability and debris, which is a nice, big, sort of touchy conversation as well, but it's still very much theory related, the frameworks at the moment. In South Africa, we've got the integrated IADC space debris mitigation guidelines, long words, and then the 24113, the international standards, ISO, into licensing frameworks. Now, this ISO framework, covers space debris mitigation requirements, and also the IADC. I don't know if any of you are familiar with them. The IADC guidelines, they are a set of non-binding, again, recommendations. They've been developed by the Interagency Space Debris Coordination Committee, IADC, acronyms, to reduce this amount of space debris in Earth orbit. And other nations absolutely follow suit. So these guidelines can be replicated, but contextualized within our current practices. Whatever zone you're in on the supply chain, for instance. The aerospace standards, what we call as AS, they're currently undergoing rebranding next year. They're going to be moving from aerospace standards to international aerospace standards, IA. And it's going to include a large range of new guidelines for supply chains, science materials as well. Risk, safety, ethics is a big thing, trackability, and of course, fake materials. Sorry, the word escapes me now. That trackability is going to be a big essential part of that aspect too. So this puts pressure absolutely on the contractual obligations again for manufacturers in implementing certain practices before their product is handed over to the client, and then of course beyond. We all know about the story when there was a space debris that fell to, I think it crashed in Australia specifically, I'm speaking, and it took them weeks to figure out who it belonged to, because the components on that specific object was not trackable. It wasn't registered anywhere, and these component, that supply or value chain component is essential, and it's covered in those standards. Now, these are very practical with very sort of requirements that need to be put in place that have some very real implications long-term, post-product development. So these are the types of things, again, when I speak about capacity and capability, that we need to be looking at. So compliance requirements, they're becoming more stringent globally. That's sort of a given because they're reviewed annually as well. But particularly around this end-of-life disposal stuff that I spoke about. So, it would be great if our African countries and our suppliers, would start adopting a proactive operational position on these aspects, especially if we want to be responsible actors, in this game. Interestingly enough, I said this area does tie quite beautifully into Ian's work on this responsibility areas in space, especially because these aspects are being increasingly looked at by companies and investors and international partners. So that's pretty key. It's not something that we can escape. Thanks, Christine. I think I'll end there, whilst I can continue talking about this for the next half an hour.
Thank you so much. I'm listening to you and I'm realizing, like, I want to tell Natasha we should have a LUNA tour, because foreign to a country. Like if I focus in my country, it's just like everything you're mentioning here, it's just going to be very foreign to my country, and it's a pity for real. And it means we need a lot of awareness in these areas. But anyway, going on to my second question. I know you have 3 questions, but I would love to ask this third question, which is saying, how does ESG compliance connect with the practical realities of space innovation in Africa, especially in ensuring environmental responsibility? The last question.
Okay, I will answer that. There is one at the present moment, and then more about a more critical answer, but I think that probably I will give later. But to answer to your question, I mean the ESG. I mean, these are fundamentally principles that provide a comprehensive framework for assessing how organizations, I mean, regardless whether public institution, private companies, or government agency, I mean, operate responsibly and sustainably. So these were originally a product of the corporate sector, but now, I mean, the ESG criteria now extends well beyond the financial performance to encompass ethical governance, environmental stewardship, and social accountability. So, I mean, these principles are really relevant for the post-industrial society that we want to create. I mean, I think that this is very important to remember. So in this in the African context, I think that, I mean, ESG compliance offers important lens through which, I mean, to frame the continent's growing engagement in outer space. I mean, because it allows policymakers, institutions to align, I mean, the legal and financial and operational dimension of space program with the values articulated with the African Union's Agenda 2063. I always have a problem with that agenda. I know that it is forward-looking, but I think that we should think now. We don't really have to wait 2063. Who is going to be alive in 2063? Who knows? I mean, we have to work now. But anyway, there is this agenda, the African Space Policy and Strategy of 2016, and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But I mean, the Africa's emerging space actors, I mean, have a unique opportunity, I mean, to integrate, I mean, preventive environmental governance, I mean, from the start of their activities. So by incorporating standards on space debris mitigations that are consistent with the United Nations Committee on Peaceful Use of Outer Space, I mean, the guidelines done by COPPAS, and for the long term of outer space activity, and then to incorporate them into domestic legislation and regulatory instruments. I mean, African states can really guarantee environmental compliance before, I mean, their orbital presence expands, and I think that that is indeed an advantage. Also because, I mean, a huge amount of space debris does not come from private activities operation. I mean, that is, it can be counterintuitive to think in this term, but it doesn't. I mean, actually, most of the space debris comes from the beginning of the space age, because, and I wrote extensively on my book about the nuclear programs of the United States, for example, that launched, I think, 3 nuclear missiles in orbit. Yeah, that's strange, but it happened. Together with a lot of things that, with a lot of weapons that even Russia launched, I mean, during those times. I mean, most of the space debris comes from that, the majority, really. So there, of course, it could increase, I mean, the pollution created by the presence of private actors. But what we have to bear in mind that they are not the one polluting right now. So but yes, African companies can be at the forefront of this of the space economy, putting in place law and having a sort of anticipatory approach to ESG. So in order to avoid, replicating the environmentally unsustainable practices of the earlier spacefaring powers, and establishing inside a model of responsible stewardship. So then at the same time, I think that the terrestrial dimension of space infrastructure must not be overlooked. I mean, that it would be better if we had some, and I hope for Djibouti and other African countries. But I mean, the construction of ground stations, launch facilities, satellite manufacturing hubs, carries environmental risk related to land use, emission, and waste management. I think that there is a lot of talk, and politicians and engineers and lawyers are aware of this, but still this require, rigorous environmental impact assessment. And usually this is not, it's not that all of Africa is just like South Africa, Kenya, or Egypt in some instances, which have the most developed frameworks dealing with these matters. We always have to bear in mind that we are dealing with a huge continent with different legal system and with different degrees of frameworks that for these specific matters. So, especially for the environmental impact assessments, one thing is an environmental impact assessment done in South Africa. And maybe it is different in Zimbabwe, it's different in Botswana, it's different in Ghana or in the Central African Republic, in case they ever think to have a space program. So, we have to take into consideration all of this, and the integration of renewable energy sources into ground infrastructure illustrate, how ESG-oriented innovation can guide, environmentally conscious industrial growth, within the space sector. So, and then another thing worth mentioning is, space-based Earth observation represent one of Africa's greatest strengths so far, in applying ESG principles, particularly under the environmental pillar. So initiatives such as the Global Monitoring for Environment and Security in Africa, the GMS and Africa, demonstrate how space technology can actively contribute to sustainability by providing real-time data on deforestation, desertification, water resource management, and climate change. So in this sense, ESG is not merely a regulatory management, but a functional expression of Africa technological innovation in service and global environmental goals. So then talking about the social dimension is also very significant. Space technology across Africa are often justified by the direct contribution to socio-economic development. And as for the governance, the third pillar of the ESG, remains both the most challenging and the most critical element for the sustainable growth of the space sector, because transparent procurement processes, clear and traceable funding mechanism, the thing that Natasha was mentioning before, and the effective anti-corruption safeguards are indispensable to maintaining legitimacy and accountability in the financing of space programs. So embedding ESG metric within the governance and reporting structure of the African Space Agency and national institution would enhance transparency, attract investment from ESG-conscious global funds, and strengthen, I think, the Africa credibility as an emerging space actor. So yeah, this is basically what I believe.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Ian. I think because of time constraints, we'll go to the next segment, but that was very insightful. And I'm really hoping that this is an eye-opener, especially to those countries that have joined us, those individuals and those agencies that have joined us, because there's a lot that we're learning from Ian and as well as Natasha. So that was very insightful. So Natasha, your career sits at the intersection of technology, defense, and compliance, which is a critical pillar for Africa's readiness in the global space arena. My question to you is, how can African nations integrate technology, governance, and defense protocols in ways that promote both innovation and continental security?
Yeah, you haven't given me an easy question. Again, sort of my technical brain sort of wants to kick in. And I think this is where, with my lecture that I do on sovereign identity, space identity, what I like to unpack there is all the aspects that we as Africans experience uniquely within our areas, our political, our cultural, historical, the social and economic identities that we have, how all of that speaks to the whole space identity scenario. And then what frameworks do we have in place to help enable that type of space identity to make it uniquely ours, without discounting the necessary collaborations that we need to have internationally. So having that, when I mentioned at the beginning of having space identity in action or sovereignty in action, you know, what does that mean? What do we need to put in place to have that a reality for us? You know, Ian said some beautifully insightful things now in just this session just before that, which actually inspired me, because I've realized that we are still very much in touch with our community, or our sense of community, which does position us as almost by default as being leaders. I would hesitate to say leaders in the environmental aspect of things in terms of informing. I'll give you just a practical little example. When the discussions that I have with the AIAA Committee of Standards meetings, the Space Sustainability Task Force, when conversations go on about how to incorporate indigenous communities practically and the types of tools and resources we need to do that, not just reporting, people tend to look towards Africa. Okay, what is Africa doing in these areas? And I thought, I never really realized the impact that we have at the global table on these aspects. So for me, that feeds very much into that space identity scenario, is what are we projecting, or what are we doing naturally that is helping, that we could leverage, maybe helping us leverage in terms of that forward thinking and that's going on in the space sector and the space industry. So that is pretty important for me. Also, you know, when we're establishing a national conversation about our sovereign right to space, you know, we need to, especially if we're aiming at inspiring people, we can't talk about the space identity without having conversations about we understand our national priorities are. So, you know, what type of value that we want to enjoy on the ground. You know, all of us operating within this continent space ecosystem, we face the challenge of creating this shared story that will draw on some aspect of our past cultural legacy, but also take us forward together, but in a way that helps us solve some very realistic current challenges. And the space industry is really positioning us to address all of these aspects almost at once, interestingly enough. So the transdisciplinary nature of this industry itself is very exciting. It's a very exciting time for us on the continent to start making some very real inroads in this area here. And forgive me, Christine, I don't know if I've gone on a tangent and not answered your question specifically. I said you haven't made it easy for me today.
Thank you so much for that. Christine, I hope you're online.
Thank you. So, Ian, with your expertise in space law, governance, and ethical frameworks, how do you see Africa positioning itself in space privatization while maintaining ethical governance and equitable access?
Well, the short answer is that Africa can pursue the privatization of parts of its space economy while preserving ethical, it can, while preserving ethical governance and equitable access, by combining smart lawmaking and conditional public financing, and maybe ESG embedded licensing, regional coordination through the African Space Agency. This may sound like a dream, but it is achievable. It is really achievable, but the path forward lies in blending the global best practices. And I would say the state-guided capitalism of China, where private companies operate within our clear national priorities. The regulatory sophistication of the European Union's lawmaking, and the entrepreneurial dynamism characteristic of the United States. Yet this is not only about privatization, because space, after all, belongs to no one. The sky stretches above all nations, and every action taken there has consequences on Earth. And the goal is not to restrain commercial development, but to structure it so that the private innovation enhances public value. Improving environmental monitoring, ensuring universal connectivity, strengthening disaster resilience, and stimulating local industry. If designed and implemented, coherently, I think that such an approach would allow Africa to leverage private capital and market energy without compromising things that nowadays are very important. Data sovereignty, social inclusion, and the environmental stewardship. In doing so, the continent could chart a distinctly African model of sustainable and responsible space development.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Ian. That was very insightful. I just feel like I'm gaining so much wisdom. I'm learning a lot that I didn't know prior to this, and I really appreciate you for answering that question. And then my question to you, Natasha, I want us to talk just a little bit about how Africa can lead through partnerships and innovation. I would like you to just briefly tell us in what ways can Africa leverage international collaborations to strengthen its domestic space industry while retaining leadership and autonomy. Just briefly explain to us how Africa can leverage the international collaborations. Please unmute. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Interesting. We really have a competitive advantage here with our demographic. We will need to be, I'm actually maybe a little disappointed myself that I've not also been talking about women and youth in this scenario. And I speak under correction, but I believe the stats are something about 400 million people under the age of 25, which is the largest youth sort of cohort globally. Some people might frame this as a challenge, and I think we need to reframe it as this is a pretty cool advantage for us to have if it's properly channeled. So this aspect is these types of conversations we ought to also be having, with regards to when we're having autonomy and capability discussions. So, but right off the bat, we've absolutely faced skill shortages in aerospace engineering, data science, and of course operations. So, with proper training in that, we can really we can fill, I'm talking globally now, hey? So we can actually start filling the global demand in these areas if we target and really coordinate this, but also still while building our national capabilities for our own countries. So, but the thing is, our ability to access current or realistic stats is a problem for me as a consultant and analyst and so forth, when I have to pull all these items together in order to assist decision makers, to have a look at the investable areas, to start monitoring risk and looking at our opportunities. We really have a challenge with regards to realistic statistics in critical areas. What are the critical areas on the continent's space industry? So for me, that's a real problem in it as well. Diversity as well, I've touched on that we need to be looking at. Our youth entrepreneurship. I'm glad to see there's quite a few programs in Africa at the moment that are focusing on these areas, including LUNA, which is really up there with regards to addressing legacy infrastructure and bureaucracies and even young founders sort of building lean and agile companies. It's very exciting stuff to be able to see. But we really need some, how do I term it, sort of diplomatic leadership through multilateralism. That's something that we can look at. Ian touched earlier about the Cold War era and that as well. So, but again, educational through transformation, or sorry, educational transformation through inspiration. There we go. I think that's a sort of a nice thing I would like to end on. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome, Natasha. Thank you so much. Kundai, you can unmute your mic. Thank you.
Oh, I'm here. All right, thank you, Natasha, for that. All right, so we're just gonna go into our next segment. Our next icebreaker coming back again. I think a lot of people wanted a rerun because they didn't think Grace was being fair. They were being too quick. So you have another option, you know, have another chance to redeem yourselves. But just before we do that, I loved everybody's smile before, so I just wanted to do it again. And I'm not going to say that our camerawoman didn't actually take the picture.
Okay. Okay. No problem.
Yeah, so if I can just get everyone to put the cameras back on again, and just again, some big smiles again.
Okay.
Gosh, you're really challenging us for a Saturday afternoon.
Definitely.
It's okay.
Right.
Okay.
Mine on. Right, everyone ready? All right, 3, 2, 1, big smiles. I'm gonna take another one. 3,
Okay.
2, 1. Amazing, brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Amazing smiles once again. Right, we're just gonna go in and do our next quiz. So just get ready, everyone. I'm just about to share my screen.
I'm ready. I shall not be fired this round.
Right, so I think yeah, we can just join again. It's the same link. For 9 players, few more, and then we'll start. So everyone joined in?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yep.
Brilliant. We'll get started then. Oh, one more. All right, get ready, everyone. This is the African version. Let's see who knows.
Holding thumbs.
Wow, easy questions. Oh my God.
I got it right.
Well done.
There's hope for me yet.
Who's leading
What?
this?
Did Natasha got it wrong?
Natasha 2 got it right, but what did Natasha 1 get it wrong?
We shall never
I'm thinking over now.
Oh, okay. Still leading. All right, next question. Get ready. There we go.
What? Mm.
My, what can this answer be?
Oops.
Holy
My
Father.
God. I doubt I got it right.
I got it wrong.
Yes!
2 for 2.
Well done, people. Who's
Finally.
leading? Oh, Natasha, it's you there. That was quite quick.
Yay! I'm not in the 10th place.
Oh, of course, Grace is still leading.
Wow.
Yeah.
Someone needs to kick him off the first spot.
Do the winners get a Sunday off from work?
They do.
That's a good answer.
Right, last question. Everyone ready? Yeah. I think I know I'm gonna be quick at that one.
No. Don't tell me
Oh my
to lose
God.
this.
I
Oh
hope
no.
I'm not.
Oh, please. I want to lead.
Oh
Please.
no.
I want to win. What's the answer?
Oh
Oh.
no.
3 for 3.
What?
Yes.
That's right. The right answer was South Africa. I had a feeling Natasha was going to be the first one there.
But wait, I clicked South Africa. Why? What happened? What? And the last.
Oh,
I
wow.
quit.
Grace is undefeated there.
Wow.
So I guess he's getting the Sunday off.
Yeah.
Wait, how is Natasha 2 in the 7th place? No.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for the icebreaker. Yes, still the winner. Still the winner.
Yeah, far winner.
Now we're going to our very last segment, which would be the Q&A. Pristine, may you please take over the Q&A session?
Yes. Thank you so much. If there's anyone who has a question, please, you can write it down or raise your hand. You can write it down in the chat and we can just read it. If anyone has a question, please raise up your hand does anyone?
I'm wondering if we were that good. Yet.
Yeah.
I doubt.
I'm wondering the same thing.
Question.
Please represent your countries.
I actually have
Anyone who has
one question. Let's see. any of you can take this one, just one question, and maybe just briefly tell us how you could assist with this. You know how if you're an engineer as a student or an engineering student, some engineering students may not have any interest in learning about policies or law or governance. Could you just briefly explain to us or tell us the importance of why as an engineer or as a student it's very beneficial to understand what goes on behind the scenes, why it's good to know about policy making decisions or strategies. Just briefly, just in a few words, explain why it's important for students who are in STEM to actually be involved in this area as well. Thank you.
Do you want me to grab that one first?
Yes, no problem.
Great question. Simply put, I'm going to give you one answer with just 2 words: circular economy. One of the focus areas that we're really trying to achieve, not just in the space industry specifically, but all the other industries, is to try and promote sustainability issues and initiatives and so on. And one of the ways we do that is start creating all of our practices, building ESG aspects into our practices, and that to support what is known as a circular economy. And this is essentially to ensure that we have all the necessary safety, ethical, and principled decisions and actions that are built into everything that we do, so that it does come back to us tenfold, so that our models are replicable for the right reasons. So we cannot work as in that silo as to, I can't just do one task without understanding the implication that this specific task that I'm having is having on the end result. And to do that, this is the reality of the world that we live in now. We have to understand not just laterally, but unilaterally what that impact is. So great decision. So the whole concept of skilled expertise right now is really, a lot of it is centered around knowledge working. So that's pretty important, and a great question, very close to my heart. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for that. Ian, can you also just briefly explain to us why engineering students should also have an interest in learning a little bit more about, space governance, policies, etc.?
The answer is very simple and straightforward, because there is a place in hell for them in case they don't focus on these matters. No, I think that it goes both ways. I mean, as I mentioned before, I am very much interested in the engineering side. I spent most of my teenage years programming, so I'm savvy with programming languages like C++ and C, the assembler. I also built by myself a website. I mean, so I know what an algorithm is. I can understand what are the problems around these things. Of course, not in the biggest scale, but what I'm trying to say, I think that we cannot really live with the old categories of the past. I mean, being just separated without knowing what other fields of knowledge are creating or are elaborating, I don't really think it is something healthy. But I think that also for the law, I mean, it is bad to talk to lawyers or to jurists that do not have a clue of how a rocket works and how are the practicalities of a launch of a spaceport, or all the things that then inform laws and regulations and standards. So I think that these, I always like to think of myself like, I mean, let's make Renaissance great again. Let's bring those men that were not only in Europe, but even in Africa, that men and women that had different skills, different mindset, and was intelligence was flexible to move in different domains and bring solutions. Because, for example, I don't like the idea that it is very popular in America of the entrepreneur almighty. It's not that just because you're an entrepreneur, you have a solution for anything, for anyone, for any problem they have in life. I think that I would go to an orchestra leader. I would go to a teacher. Teachers are very important. I mean, they really make, I mean, they are the ones making change in the world. I mean, it's not still ChatGPT. And so I think that they should not be trapped by the allure that now governments bring to engineering, because they just want to exploit those people for their national interest. I think that they had better buy a book of poem, reading them, maybe talk with lawyers, maybe learn an instrument, and I think that also a musical instrument. I mean, and I think that people in the law policy, they also be good in math. I mean, not relegating things to calculator. I think that let's bring Renaissance style man, or the idea of sage that is popular in Africa, that was popular in China, in Japan, India, popular again. Let's not be just specialized, but let's be open. As Natasha said, that I fully agree. I mean, our knowledge today require us to be really broad, but that actually, I think, is the best thing of living in these turbulent times.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a great answer. There's nothing wrong with being diverse and just being more informative about how certain structures work. So I really enjoyed your response to that. And also, may you please go to the next slide? Since there are no more questions, please go to the next slide to show them his book. As we all know, Ian is very knowledgeable about, space law, space stations, as well as the legal frameworks. I really urge you all to go on Amazon and to find his book. We have it there on the screen, on the legal framework of orbiting space stations and the privatization of space law. If you're planning on having an agency in your country, or if you would want to know how to build, a space agency, spaceports, etc., I believe this would be the best foundation for you, so that you can study how other nations had built their agencies. So I
didn't build my space station already.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so please
no kidding, no kidding. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. So please go on Amazon. And I'm seeing there's a hand raised. This would be the last question, and then we will wrap things up. Ayodeji, may you please unmute your mic if you have a question?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone from Nigeria.
Good afternoon.
My question is on mentorship. I really want to ask how you can adequately harness mentorship when it comes to the space industry. I discovered that because of my passion, I'm always driven into proportion and all. And if you try to message or connect with people on LinkedIn, you see that they find it probably takes them a long time to even connect with you because you have not actually gotten to their social capacity, or even when you ask them a question, they might not actually reply. So my question is, how do you harness mentorship when it comes to space industry and as a student? Yeah.
Great question. Ayodeji, can I address this first? Hey, also very close to my heart with regards to education and training. And again, a very untapped resource is go to your country if your country has a technical standards committee and request mentorship over there. Sorry, I hope you can still hear me. There's a car going next door at the guest house here. approach your technical standards committee and actually, for the field that you're interested in, is request mentorship in that area. The technical standards committee will have all the players, or most of the players, in a specific field of expertise. That technical committee is not always utilized for mentorship opportunities. It's an untapped resource. And I totally get the challenges that you face with LinkedIn. I try to connect with as many people as possible and share networks with as many people as possible, because this is a modern age. This is how we do things these days. But mentorship is an absolute gap that needs to be reignited. It used to be, I think, in the old days with apprenticeships and so forth, but everyone assumes that it's just technical nature. There's no reason why that cannot happen in all of these transdisciplinary fields that we're looking at. Alternatively, is set up your own LinkedIn group, your own LinkedIn page, and invite certain people to these experts and that could possibly help share information about these things, even if it's just topics, because that's how we learn. If we can't learn a one-on-one with somebody, there's no reason to say that we can't have it in a group setup, a group scenario. So knowledge, access to knowledge is an absolute very important thing for me, and it's something that I stand for, the ability to access information, transfer it into knowledge, and pass it forward. So thanks for that question, Ayudeji, and good luck with your next steps on
that. Thank you so much for that answer. I'm not sure, but I don't think there are more questions after this. But I really wanted to thank everyone for joining. Some of us had to leave about half an hour ago, but I really wanted to appreciate and just acknowledge everyone for being here, because this was very informative, and I believe that, you know, we're all trailblazers. The things that we've heard, we shouldn't just dump them and, you know, forget about them. Let's research more. Let's buy Ian's book. Let's go on Natasha's LinkedIn. There's so much. She also published, I believe it's a booklet on space frameworks, etc. So I just urge you all to connect with Natasha as well as Ian, and as well as to follow Luna.
We respond anyway.
Yes, they respond.
If anyone writes me, I always respond. No, we do.
Yes, they respond. They have the contacts on their LinkedIn. So I urge you all to follow them. And please understand that just because you're a teacher or an engineer, it doesn't mean that you should be oblivious to how things work behind the scenes. This is actually very important. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into launching, you know, rockets, or if you have satellites. So I really urge you all to follow them. There's a lot that they're doing, and you'll see by the end of the year and years to come. So I really thank you all. Please don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. You can also just write reviews or tag us as well on our social media platforms with the hashtag LUNA AfriSpace 2025 or LUNA 2025, AfriSpace 2025. So thank you so much. This is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely weekend and stay blessed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay blessed and enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Your prizes are coming.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Your prizes are...
Grace gets Sunday off.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All
right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Ian.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
I've sent my request already, Ian.
Yes.
I prefer to stay here.
I've sent my request already on your LinkedIn, so.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, so
I will accept it straight away. So, Natasha, are you satisfied?
Yes, I am. There are people in the room though, but we have 8 people in the room. Wait.
No, I think that there were some. On Saturday, I think that there was a lawyer from from Italy. I think Chiara Biella, I think that was her name.
Okay.
Yeah, and then and okay, there is Kunda, yes. Okay, got it. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
So what do you think about the content and everything? Do you think that was it good?
Yes, it was. I actually learned a lot. I didn't know about, Kenya and Italy. You highlighted on how they collaborated and how the infrastructure is there. I was not aware that the route was.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So
And you should see the comments of the Kenyan government that are not happy about that agreement. Yeah. And Italy is just praising like, yeah, we are collaborating with all of Africa. Everything is just perfect and nice and blah, blah.
Yeah.
But the Kenyans, they just think that they're not taking as much advantage as they could, which I think is right in a way. So yeah.
Yeah, but it was really informative. The slides, the book as well, very informative.
Oh yeah, no,
But
well, just
yeah, I think I'll also just read a little bit more about Kenya and Italy, just all of that you had mentioned, because I did not know. I don't know if you had
Oh well,
seen
don't worry.
that.
It's not many people know it. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
that. But that is the problem with Africa. I mean, with African countries. I mean, I didn't want to mention the social dimension, but I was always shocked about how people at the top of African society do not really care about the people in the middle or that are completely, So, and I think that they are driving the conversation, but if only people less fortunate would be involved, I think that would be really transformative. I mean, the inequality is really striking, and I think that is hurting the development. But that are my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, you have experience in this field, so it was very, very informative. But yeah, I'm gonna have to just read a little bit more about it, and just
Me
find
too.
out what's going on. But I also like how, involving, I don't want to say lower class, but those people who aren't in these spaces, just finding how they could contribute or elevate, Earth observation, because they're the ones that need those improvements, especially in farming. You know how farming is very
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
necessary. Yeah, so that was very insightful. Thank you so much, Ian.
Yeah, but even Natasha was great. I mean, we spent some time talking. I mean, I think that both of us had so many things to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe for next time. And I will go. Well, I told you in Vienna. Yeah, for that. So even that will be interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you for putting together all the amazing people that I saw here, and now they disappeared because, of course, they are just preparing for Halloween. We are the last standing.
Yeah, and we just have a few more people. But thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No,
Yeah.
no, my pleasure, my pleasure.
Unless
So
one
okay, I
of the
leave you to.
guests, I was saying, unless one of the guests wants to unmute and join the conversation. But yeah, this is the end.
But I don't know if they are still alive or not.
I don't know. I hope no one dozed off. Yeah. Okay. Thank you
But I
so
love your background. I love your
Ah,
background anyway.
I'm actually in space. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I mean that picture is really beautiful.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day
You
and
too.
continue being great, okay?
I will keep in touch.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
Natasha.
All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Asha, John, Ayo Martins, Roxana, are you there? I'm leaving the meeting. Thank you so much, guys.